morning and welcome back to Talking Your Walk. There's many people I've met in my life that, do a whole variety of things, but my guest today, Dr. Helen Ford, is such an inspiration because she just gets on with it. No nonsense, just got on with it. And it's an absolute privilege to meet up with her here in Shrewsbury at the Wellbeing Cafe. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for asking, and thank you for taking the trouble to do it.
No, not at all. So can I ask you, what kind of child were you? Where were you brought up? Where were you born?
I was brought up I was born in Liverpool, but I was brought up in Sunderland in the north where my parents lived. It was a pretty depressed area at the time. And I was a good child because I learned to be good. I mean, I one of the things I do is explain in my work how the pressures of your environment can stop you being yourself. And the pressures the big pressure in our environment was deliberate disobedience was always punished as the ultimate sin. And you had to do what you're told. And if you weren't doing what you're told, you had to exercise more self-discipline until you could do what you were told. So I think I was a good child in the sense that I just did what I was told and I sat quiet and got on with it. But I read books. I learned to read really early, and that was my saving, really. And then
books?
I used to like Dr. Dolittle books. I just used to go to the local library and see what I could find. I like Dr. Dolittle books, and I liked the Enid Blyton adventure things as well, because it was like kids on their own doing their thing. So like, oh, that's so amazing. And then we had kind of occasional. We used to go to North Wales to the house my grandfather built. Every summer, and that was bliss. It was like freedom and in nature. My brother and I would go out and roam the hills and the seaside and spend all day outside, and that was like heaven. So I don't remember much of my childhood. It was kind of being indoors, grey, raining a lot of the time. I remember watching the raindrops run down the window and seeing if one was going to catch the other raindrop first. I mean, that was entertainment. But then I asked to go to boarding school when I was 8, which was the best plan I ever had.
Oh, okay, so whereabouts did you go? Yes,
I went super far. I went to Leamington, boarding school in Leamington. It was absolutely great. It was my cousin was there. What it was an old house, with a big grounds. It's kind of more like a kind of manor-y house thing. Had beautiful grounds, beautiful cedar tree. I remember in the garden, just big, and there was horses in a paddock and. Used to scrump. Somebody planted some vegetables, and I used to scrump the old carrot and fresh pea from the bee pods. But it was brilliant. They left us to our own devices. There was only about 20 boarders, and there was also an ordinary school. And they left us to our own devices, really. As long as we came into meals and we used to have that malt, the malt you have.
Okay, yes, malt. Oh, yes,
with your malt, spoonful of malt in the morning. Very nice. And nobody really bothered with us as long as we didn't cause any trouble. So I really loved the place because I had this wonderful teacher called Ivy C. Weller. I remember her handwriting and everything. She was one of these really old-fashioned teachers. She had this perfect hair. She had her hair in a hairnet, and it was all sort of perfectly waved. It was grey, obviously, and under this net, and she had a beautiful handwriting, and I absolutely adored her, and because she loved her subject, and she taught us. By the end when we were at the end of our time there, she taught us practically everything. So we were learning calculus and maths. I was learning Latin, poetry, Virgil's Aeneid for pleasure, and we and my friends were doing Shakespeare, acting it out in the classroom at the end of the day for pleasure, because she had this passion for the subjects she taught. It was brilliant.
I think that makes such a difference, doesn't it? Yeah. When your teachers are passionate about what they teach rather than just doing it because it's a job.
She was wonderful. She loved her subjects, and you felt it. And when somebody loves the thing they're talking about, it permeates into you so easily because your whole energy field opens to it. So everything they know can actually filter into you without any effort. So it was utterly effortless learning. It was brilliant. So I loved that teacher. And then my parents, in their same ideas that I needed more discipline, because I suppose I might have become a bit freer. Sent me to Cheltenham Ladies College, which I did not want to go to, and which did not suit me at all. It was a very bad place for me because it was more of the same old discipline, well behaved, do what you're told, stiff, no self-expression. I mean, I was thinking this morning coming here that I remember I wrote an essay one time on beauty, which I had some personal opinions about. So I wrote, it was actually a good essay because I can write well. And my teacher wouldn't mark it. She said it was too personal. So she wouldn't give me a mark even though it was good. But the compensation for that was when I did my entrance exams to Cambridge, I wrote also my finals at Cambridge, I wrote personal, what mattered to me, and they loved it. Yeah. So it just depends who you get.
Yeah, I think that's the case, isn't it? You'll either get some people who encourage you or people who will discourage you, and that's such a shame for a lot of people.
Yeah, well, they don't want you to be truthful. Because when I did my interviews again, this teacher I had, this history teacher, she, it's not the other one who wouldn't mark me. She asked me what I'd said at the interviews, and I just said whatever the man asked me. I just said what I really thought and felt. I said the truth, basically. And he asked me all sorts of things, that I believe in God, all sorts of things. And he asked me about Cheltenham and all this. And I told him the truth. I just told him the truth. And we got on really well. He took me to tea in the fellows' dining room, which I didn't realize was an honor at the time. You know, this crazy schoolgirl in her Cheltenham Ladies College terrible hat and awful old uniform. It was very brave of him to take me. I think he might have taken me in as an entertainment for the others. So anyway, so when I told her, she was so angry, and she said, "You betrayed your school, and they were testing your loyalty to your school." That's her idea. Wow. That I would be tested for my loyalty to my school, and it was my loyalty to school. She said, "You ruined your chances." She was absolutely mad. And then I got a scholarship. The guy gave me a scholarship. Yeah. So he never spoke to me again, hardly. It's really sad, really. I mean,
it is because they keep perpetuating that sort of that's okay, that sort of style of teaching, that style of being.
I don't think people are like that now, but it was all about, they'd model themselves on boys' schools and discipline, and we had this incredibly disciplined day. We had every quarter of an hour was allocated to something. You know, you got up, you had to wash, you had to make your bed, you had to come down, you had breakfast, you had to go for a run, that's right. Then you had breakfast, and then you had prayers, and then you walked to school, and on. And I just did it. There it was. And the same thing, I took refuge in literature, whatever we were allowed to have. But again, things were quite interestingly censored. I mean, my house mistress censored books, and I remember there was some classical book that was actually quite dull. I don't know, it might have been I don't know if it was a Thomas Hardy book, but anyway, the actual, there was no, sexual stuff, but on the picture, of the cover, to sell the book, they'd done some picture of a sexy woman or something, a suggestive picture. And of course, this house mistress didn't read any of these books, and she banned this book because of the picture on the outside. And she used to check every single Valentine and read it and make sure there was nothing in it that was unsuitable. I mean, that's what it was like. I mean,
Well, pure control.
and I wasn't allowed to buy cream cakes either, but I did buy them when I was older. You're allowed to go out to town once a week, and I went and I bought cream cakes. I like cream cakes. And they were confiscated. But what was odd was they kept them in the fridge from Friday, and then I was allowed to have them on Sunday. I don't know why they let me have them at all, but by that time the cream wasn't quite so good.
Yeah.
So
a bit off.
I was supposed, but I kind of, it was all right. It was easy enough for me to be there in a way because I was used to that sort of thing. But I'd had this little bout of freedom at this prep school.
Wow.
This was wonderful.
So moving on, you went to Cambridge and you studied medicine.
I did natural sciences there. You don't study medicine there. And then I went to Addenbrooke's in London. I went to Middlesex in London and did my medical training. And then I I had one job there, and then I went back to Addenbrooke's in Cambridge and had a couple of jobs there.
Yeah. Okay. So when you say you had a couple of jobs, what kind of work?
Medical
work.
Doctor,
Okay.
proper doctor.
Proper doctor.
Proper doctor. I quite liked it. Some of the things I liked better than others. I liked. I really liked. I used to like diabetic comas because it was really fun. You get somebody there unconscious and their blood sugar's all over the place and their electrolytes all over the place, and you've got to be really careful and keep monitoring and get everything right and get them back to being awake and fine. And that's things where you had a result I quite liked.
Yeah. Okay.
And but some things. I suppose what I gradually realized was, well, for one thing, I was pretty good at diagnosis, where the other doctors said, well, how do you do it? And I said, well, how do I do what? But I didn't realize then that I was using my psychic skills to pick up the energy of the problem, like an abscess in the pelvis or something. And I thought I could feel it. And I thought I could hear an abnormal sound in a man's chest. And I suggested he had an X-ray, and they found a tiny cancer. But I don't think I could have heard it. It's funny, really. I don't think I could have actually. Where was there going to be a different sound, and nobody else could hear anything. But I think I must have been kind of tuned in at that other level without realizing it. The level of the spirit level. So spirit level. Okay. So I just went along blithely ignorant of really what I was capable of. My patients used to get better when they weren't supposed to, but I used to put my hands on them a lot, so I didn't even think anything of that. And I liked them, and I didn't think anything of that either. Didn't think it was important, because you get the mindset that it's the material world is all that matters, not the energy world. I've had to change my mind. So I didn't believe in anything spiritual. I thought it was in line with my parents. I thought it was all rubbish. And I also, well, not rubbish, but also the stuff that I do now they would describe it as what was it? It was not weird. They wouldn't use the word weird. What did they say? Quackery.
Quackery.
Yeah, quackery. Yes, quackery was the way they saw it. So it's like I wasn't very responsible. In fact, when my mother died, she cut me out of her will because I'd already changed over to the quackery side of things.
Wow! But you came from a family of doctors,
yes,
didn't
my
you?
father was a surgeon. My mother was a physician, but they were both very, very good at their job. They were both very good, honourable, honest people who they were doing what they thought was right and good, and they honestly believed, like many people still do, that operating from the dimension of, well, spiritual dimension, but energy dimension is just imagination or something. I mean, I came back home one time and said, when I was little, and said told my parents I could see angels, and my mother thought I was schizophrenic, and my father, I was only about 5, my father thought I was lying, and that was being naughty, because I'd been given a picture of an angel in a, more discipline. I'd been given a picture of an angel in a, by a nun, and I was at a nursery school with nuns, Montessori teaching, and I was really ill after that. I got diphtheria and I nearly died. I went out of my body, I think. I remember that later. And because it was like, and I just thought, I can't do this. I can't do it. And I went and said and I remember this in another meditation I did later on, much later. And I remember I went out and I said, I can't do this. I can't do it. And I encountered this spiritual being. It was just a being. It wasn't anything special. It didn't have wings or anything like that. It was just somebody. Calm being, and I said, I can't do it. And all that being said was, well, you chose it. Not you've got to do it because you chose it, but remember you chose it. You actually chose this. So I went back, and that was when I cut off all my ability to sense energy, because I couldn't function. that way. I could only function in the material world. So I know what it's like to function only in the material world and to deny energy, the energy world, because it's just really sad, and you get sad, and it's kind of dull relatively. Yeah. But so I know what it feels like. So I have sympathy for people who have been trained that that's the world they have to live in.
Well, they don't know anything else, do they?
Well, they have inside, because the inner being wants the energy world. It wants love and beauty and the light that comes off nature. I mean, a lot of people, the good thing about the COVID is people have connected up with nature because they've not been able to have material connections. So they're getting more of a sense of the connection of the inner being with the inner being of everything. So I think it's been quite beneficial in that way.
Yeah. Oh, I believe that as well, you know, and you can see that on some social media channels. People may be noticing that there's birds in their gardens for the first time, or the colours of flowers, or even that they maybe even smell nice, you know.
Amazing.
And many people starting to grow vegetables who'd never done that before as well. So I think, you know, it's been a huge blessing for a lot of people, and a lot of people realizing maybe where their priorities are.
Well, or just that there's another world that can give them pleasure and satisfaction and intense connection, because nature, I mean, the connection you can have with just being connected with nature is just fantastic, and it's fulfilling. And the other one, there's something about them, just a purely material thing. I was thinking the other day, well, you know, people do a job and sometimes they do it with their spirit and their material skills, and then they're really, really good at what they do. And sometimes they just do it with the material skills, and they can be very good at that, but they get tired. Because the soul's not flowing through them, and their love isn't flowing through them because they're just doing the job. And it's kind of, they get sad. It's a kind of sadness, and the kind of stiffness happens. It's a shame, because if they would realize that you might as well do energy as well, you might as well do love and a good material job.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the good things about some of the schools now, are starting to bring in people who are maybe teaching about mindfulness, compassion, yoga, doing things like that. And I think it's little steps, but it's steps that are in the right direction, and I think that's wonderful. So after your training, that you ended up in Canada.
I went to Canada, and because my parents left me this house in North Wales, this beautiful farmhouse, and very old. It was given by Queen Elizabeth I to her favourite at the time.
Oh, okay.
And although I don't know how long the favourite lasted, but okay. So then the person who'd sold her the house had kept the land that went with it. It was 70 acres of mountain, and they put it up for sale. They got planning permission to build on it right outside our front door. And they didn't intend to build on it. They just wanted to get a higher price. So I just said, all right, we'll borrowed the money from my dad. And then no way we could have earned the money in the NHS. The way things were then, we didn't get very well paid. And so we went to Canada to earn the money to pay him back.
Okay.
That was the idea. And it took it took quite a few years, but it was. And since then, I've just planted it with trees, little trees, and also I've done all the main trees I want to put. Well, I might put a few more, but now I'm doing camellias, rhododendrons, magnolias, and general beauty, and cherry blossom.
Oh, cherry blossom, fabulous! One of my favorite trees.
Loads of cherries, and they flower at different times, and it's absolutely magic, and it's just great how everything. I think, because I've got an allotment, and I've been, I don't weed it, and my neighbour in the allotments, absolutely, he says my allotment is a disgrace, he says. But what I do is I dig it up in the spring. It's been very wet this year, and that's probably why it's such a bad disgrace. But I dig it up, and then I plant straight into it. And what I've noticed is that there's a huge difference in the soil in my allotment. Because when I dig up the weeds, and then there's all this lovely earth and all the little roots all together, and the earth is soft and friable and lovely. It feels really you know, good. And all this thing where they're growing things in these huge tracts of bare earth that they're keeping free of everything. And, you know, one cabbage, one lettuce, and maybe we're growing well, but the earth goes dry and hard. It's not the same. It hasn't got life. It goes dead.
But maybe they're not putting that life into
no,
it.
The weeds, the weeds put life into it.
Yeah.
You know, nettles are brilliant. They break up the soil wonderfully, and all these little weeds, they put lots of good energy. And I think that, and looking at in Wales, the trees like their roots to tangle up. They seem to like this comradeship, connection.
As do people.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Quite so. Yes. So we lived in Canada, and that was very interesting because we were out in the prairies, and there was no. I used to get really excited if we ever had a little hill, and also if we ever had a little mist, because we never had any mists or fogs there. These great big tracts of land, and you could see the sunset. You could see the sunset all round. You know, stand anywhere you liked, and you could see the whole of the sunset. And they were just really interesting people. They were very tough. These people who settled there. I suppose this is only a couple of 100 years. They were tough. They were strong in themselves. They were good. They were straightforward.
They had to be as well.
Yes,
to
exactly.
survive.
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
but it was really good. We were in Manitoba and then Newfoundland, and they were tough areas. The West Coast is different. It's much softer.
And then you come back.
I came back where we paid for the land and started planting trees and doing stuff, and I had kids. Okay, I've got 5 kids. I say 6, 5 kids, and then I kind of started doing. I started doing. I read Bach's books. You know, Bach Remedy books, his books. And I was in Canada, and I started taking an interest. Okay, maybe there's more to this than maybe there's more to illness. And I'd noticed it myself. I'd noticed in people that they were ill, and there were certain energies or patterns of behavior going with illnesses. I remember one case that really struck me. This woman came in. She was complaining that she'd got boils. She developed boils, and they were bad. They're all over her face. And, you know, I did all the thing, the dad. No, it wasn't that. And what it was, it turned out, was that her husband had come out that he was gay. And Canada is very old fashioned, and it was obviously it's a small community as well. And she was so angry and embarrassed, and just beside herself. And I just suggested to her, I said, well, look, you know, you really got to just forgive him. It's not his fault, you know. It's how he is. And if you want to get rid of the boils, and I knew that's what she'd have to do to get rid of the boils. It was obvious, but I don't know if she did it. She didn't come and see me again. I wasn't very popular then when I told people that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
it didn't go down very well. It's like everybody wanted to believe that their illnesses were not their fault.
Yeah,
it arrived out of the sky.
And looking for you to give them maybe a tablet or something that would solve that for them.
And then I started trying to tell them what they could do to help themselves, using the Bach remedies and things like that. And then now what I do, and you know, it's much more to do with, okay, your illness is a product of your separation from some aspect of your soul, and it's like, it's up to you to put that aspect back, and you'll feel much better when you do. And so that's the basis I work on with now. But it's been quite a mission, because people weren't, in the old days when I started doing this, they weren't very enthusiastic about hearing this, but enough people were to do it, and it was reassuring. You know, people would do it, but I periodically get sort of, you know, a bit of hate directed at me.
Yeah, but that's the thing, isn't it? And then there's a lot of people that wouldn't even know about the various aspects of being as well that would just stink in the physical, and so you would need to sort of guide them into what that could be.
Everybody recognises feelings. So you see, what I've learned to do when I'm working is I start with the present, what they're feeling now. So I can put my hands on them and see what's going on that's not aligned, and then they can recognise the now. I say, well, you know, and this is what's making you feel like this. This is your trigger. Okay, so they can recognize that. And this is your soul that needs to come forward and do this differently. So that they may not quite understand. But eventually, then I go back and say where all this came from. It comes from your childhood, or maybe from your mother when you were in the womb, quite often, and from mother's feelings, because women, for generations, the energy has been passed down by women to other women, and also probably to some men, that being a woman, you don't have a contribution to make from your being. You have a contribution to serve others, and it's left a lot of women with the feeling of personal worthlessness, like intrinsic worth, no intrinsic worth, and of course that carries on. It produces bad results, and you know it's sort of like they end up doing what they're supposed to do, and end up being resentful and unfulfilled, and so on and so forth, and jealous of their own children who are doing their own thing as well on top of that. So, but if once you can explain to people that there's a process, there's patterns that we can absorb, we learn from our mother because we're genetically programmed to learn from our mother. We can't help it, but you can undo it by coming from the inside. So by starting to listen to yourself and to what feels truly good and right inside, and starting to act on it, you can undo the patterns. And that's so satisfying when people get it, and you can see them sort of fill with joy that what they are is fine after all, and it's a contribution and it's enough, and they don't have to follow any mold. But maybe it was important for me to have that experience of being super molded and to feel how awful it was. I mean, I was really good at it. The thing was, when I was at school and everything, I was super good. I mean, I was top of the class all the time. So here's me, this good person. I know how to do it, and I know that I get top of the class. That's my goal. So I'd do it all. I'd be top of the class, and then at the end of it all, I'd feel wasted. It's like, well, that didn't give me any satisfaction. Maybe it'll be better if I get 100 instead of 96 next time. It's like, really. And then your goals change, and the goal is happiness or fulfillment, or to be flowing love by your own way, whatever. And that's so nice, and it's just so different. But it wasn't there. It just wasn't there. It wasn't available.
So now you do workshops. You do lots of workshops. You do lots of talks, and your talks. People just love your talks, and that's from the feedback that I've had from people who go to your talks, and so where do you do your workshops from now?
Well, I do them. Well, I haven't done anything much lately. I've only done one in the last, whatever it is, 2 years. I do them in my place in North Wales, this farmhouse, with the trees. Yeah. It's right up a mountain. It's really gorgeous. Of course, it rains because it's North Wales, but it doesn't always rain. And when it's sunny, it's spectacular. And I do it there. I do workshops there.
And what kind of workshops are they?
Well, what kind of workshops are they?
Yeah. What would be the title of them? Oh,
the title of them. I did one. The one I did recently was called "You and Not You."
Okay.
Which is to work on establishing the patterns of behavior that you identify with that are not your true self, and how you can tell the difference between your true self, your soul self, and the other pattern, and why you had the other pattern, and how it served you, and how you can let go of it. Wow. I do workshops on healing for spirits of the dead. I love doing that. It's really good. I think they need some help.
Yeah.
And I do workshops on creating what you desire. I'm going to be doing more on relationships, because I'm quite interested in the whole principle of establishing relationships, starting with your own true self, like soul, and radiating that, and then seeing what you attract, rather than having, because as soon as you have an agenda of what you want, which may not be what you want, but it may be what your mother wanted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And having that, instead of having an agenda of what you want, and then trying to mold yourself to get what you want, of being yourself and seeing what tips up.
Yeah.
And also discerning whether what is tipping up is there because what that person wants is you, or whether they see something that, again, I mean, a lot of people, honestly, in relationships, a lot of people kind of think they can mold another person. I mean, change them and have them be what they want. But that's only because they were molded when they were kids, and that, oh, I love you if you be how I want you to be. So you carry on the old patterns until you realize they don't work. Or if they do work for a while, but they're not very satisfying. I'm after satisfaction, really. I can't agree with Mick Jagger. Can't get no satisfaction. You can definitely get satisfaction, but he was obviously.
He was young when he.
Yeah, he's young. Yeah, exactly. That's how.
And so you're doing your workshops up,
and I do some workshops in Stourbridge.
You do some in Stourbridge,
and I do a few occasionally in London.
Yeah,
but it's a mission in London because I haven't got a really good place to work. I haven't found a good place to work there. I'm not mad keen on London, but I feel that London could do with something.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I like the country. I like my garden, and I don't know. I'm less enthusiastic all the time about London.
And you're still doing your talks, and you still do sort of days where you'll do a whole day. And I know you did a couple of years ago when we could be doing days, and you would do a day with other ones like healing days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't mind. I do festivals as well.
Yeah,
I'm very keen on festivals. Glastonbury, I love Glastonbury, and the Green Gathering I'm doing this year, and I do little mini workshops there. But I like to do a whole day workshop. I mean, I go to people's, if people want me to go somewhere and do a workshop, I'm really happy if somebody else organises it. I go and do workshops with a friend in Cardiganshire. So I go there about once a year. I'm quite happy. I like travelling.
Yeah.
I like driving in my car and putting on the music and having a good jiggity, or yeah.
I've done that, been in the car, and I remember once there was a wonderful guy who played the didgeridoo here. He died a few weeks ago, called Chris Thorne. Yeah, only young, beautiful man. And I remember he gave me a copy of his CD, and it was didgeridoo with a little bit of dub in the background.
Yeah.
And when I was driving, I was sort of going, oh, this is great. I ended up stopping in a car park and getting out and dancing. I just thought it was fabulous.
Good for you. I don't think I'd do that. I think I'd probably, I wouldn't do it in a car park. I might find a secluded piece of woodland.
I was the only person in the car park. I mean, I wouldn't have cared anyway if I wasn't, but I mean...
well, that's good. That's really good. If you wouldn't have cared, if anybody saw you dancing in a car park, I think that's great.
Just as if anybody was passing, the probably think she must be getting attacked by a wasp or something, honestly.
Yeah, excellent.
Oh, it was fabulous. Well, I know you've got your website, drhelenford.com.
Yeah, very unupdated, I'm afraid. And that's another thing. See, I hate computers and all that stuff, and I'm so old-fashioned. And I like all my old furniture and my old wooden spoons, and old knives and forks and old plates. I haven't got a single matching plate, but I get ones I like. I think I've got this. I don't know. I'm just kind of not. I think I'm not geared for the modern world, but it's fine because I'm old. So it's fine. So I can leave this one and reincarnate backwards into Shakespeare's time. I think that would be my preference.
Is that because of the books that you've read?
Yeah, well, I did that period of history when I did history, and because of Shakespeare, I think. I mean, I just love to
Yeah.
go on there and experienced him, and just that somebody so amazing in their consciousness of human nature. And oh God, I mean, you know, reading it or hearing it or watching going places is good, but just to meet somebody with that kind of being would be really special.
Yeah.
Well, I think, you know, Helen, meeting you is really special for a lot of people.
Thank you.
Seriously. And thank you very much
Okay,
for
you're
being
welcome.
with us today. It's been wonderful and an eye opener for me again. I love it.
Eye opener, yeah. How someone can move from completely inhibited, perfectly well behaved, organized person to expressing themselves freely in ways that a lot of people found unacceptable.
Yeah, but that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's what I admire about you. You walk your truth. You talk your truth. You're so authentic to yourself and that as well. And that takes, I feel, a lot of courage.
Yeah, it does take courage, but,
Yeah,
but
it's
once you start,
possible.
it makes you happier. And
Yes,
that's the incentive.
yeah.
If I hadn't been so miserable doing the other thing, I might not have had the urge to change to that degree. So in a way, it was good that I had this restricted life, because it was so unbearable that I had to do something.
You chose that.
Yeah,
Didn't you?
I know. Yes, thank you for reminding me. I did, and I'm glad. I think it was good, because it was like, okay, I know where it goes, I know where it comes from, I know where I want to go, and I'm really happy to have got to the point where I feel that I'm all right as I am with what comes from inside myself, and I don't have to be learning from outside myself how to be
Yourself.
Yeah, well, it's not myself, is it? I'm learning from outside.
Yeah.
Something else.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
And yeah, I'll be seeing you soon at Living Well
Yeah,
as
okay,
well.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.